Hi, and welcome to Spoonful of Strength. I'm Rachel, and I live with multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, and a few other diagnoses that keep life interesting.
And I'm Tina. I am a fibromyalgia warrior with chronic back issues and a proud stage 4 cancer survivor. We're sisters, and together we're here to support, inspire, and connect. So if you're new here, the spoon theory explains how we navigate life with limited energy or spoons.
And we're thrilled to share that we've been ranked number 30 on FeedSpot's Top 100 Chronic Illness podcast list. So grab a spoon and let's dig into stories, tips, and a whole lot of strength. Welcome to another great episode of Spoonful of Strength. We're so happy that you've joined us today. Today we have a great episode where we're going to talk about music and how music as medicine for chronic illness. And then in part 2, we're going to welcome Cerys. And Cerys is from Wales, and she's going to come on and talk about her Limb Girdle Muscular Dystrophy 2I. And that is a form of muscular dystrophy. And she's going to talk about living with that. She's got a great podcast we're going to talk about as well. And this is another chronic illness that we haven't heard much about in the podcast. So we're excited to talk to her and spread some awareness about that. So, Tina, long time no see. We're not skipping a beat on the podcast, but we've had to take a week off. How are you doing?
I am better. I know you had a harder. Both of us kind of went down in the same week, I guess, which is a good.
That's good.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it had to happen, at least it happened at the same time. So,
Yep. Yep.
but thankfully my voice is back. I'm recovering. We hosted, as our longtime listeners have heard me mention many times, flyball. We hosted a flyball tournament this weekend. And my body is definitely feeling it today. This was pretty active and a little more strenuous. Of course, that falling in the middle of a parking lot didn't help either.
No.
So,
Oh my gosh. It's
but
crazy.
I know you were really, really sick last week. So how are you doing
Yeah.
now?
I am still feeling it, but I feel like I'm finally turning a corner. Craziest thing, I just woke up one day with a sore throat and a cough and just kept getting worse and I was supposed to have surgery. If you listened to the last couple of episodes, I was supposed to have a muscle biopsy done last week, and I started getting this cold, and I was pushing vitamins and I did a test on Sunday, a couple days after feeling sick. I did a flu COVID test, and it came out fine. So I was like, I can beat this. I can still have my surgery. And by Monday, went to urgent care and was diagnosed with influenza A. So I literally have never been so sick in my life. I think when you have a chronic illness and then you get a flu, it just amplifies everything. And so, I mean, even getting on my laptop was overwhelming. I just did not do much last week, and I'm still inching into um, getting back into things. But my surgery's been rescheduled for a week, so I've got another week to get to feeling better, and then we'll get the surgery over with. And then um, I convinced my neurologist to get me on a relapse treatment after the surgery's over. So I, because of my type 1 diabetes, I can't take steroids, which is the normal treatment when you have an MS relapse. And relapses can happen when you get sick. And I'm experiencing a lot of symptoms. And so I have to do an injectable gel for my relapses. So that takes a little bit of time to get through insurance and all of that. So we've agreed to, after I get through the surgery, then to get some medicine in to hopefully get my body to bounce back. So it has been a week, but we have been so thankful that Carys has pushed back her interview so that we could take time to rest. And, we've been able to get through it, and we're here and ready to talk about music today. Are you a big music person? Because I feel like I'm a weird music person. Like I don't have a certain genre that I listen to. I don't have like specific artist. My playlists are kind of ridiculous. The span of music and in time and genre and all of that. But music's always been really important for me. But how does music affect your life?
I'm the same way. I'm very eclectic in my music taste. Usually at home, inside the house, I'll normally only turn music on like to pump myself up for cleaning. Like, I have a nice like
Mhm.
cleaning playlist or something. Or if we're having people over, then it's nice to put music on in the background. But car wise, I usually have it set on that 80s 80s channel on my
Mhm.
satellite radio, but I'll mix, I'll go anywhere from the 60s to the 90s. But I also like a lot of like little new agey, you know, um, like calming meditation type music is also a really good one for me to listen to as well.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I was like, I know Tina's got some. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I was doing just a little bit of research here of just how much music actually has science behind it and how much it affects like the brain and the nervous system. And I want to read a couple of these to you, but there's actually certain types of music that help certain illnesses. So even with Parkinson's disease, what this study is saying is that listening to different types of music via wireless headphones can help with Parkinson's disease. What it says is genre specific effects of music on spatiotemporal parameters of gait and trunk kinematics. So, music belonging to the classical genre diminished walking speed and trunk tilting, while rock and heavy metal enhanced pelvic movement. So there was actually a science to the type of music and how that can affect walking in Parkinson's patients. Isn't that crazy?
Interest. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. But I mean, honestly, though, when you think about it, like, your favorite song comes on, whatever that genre is, and it's almost like, it does get you, you almost can't help, we, your
Mm-hmm.
body moving. So, in different ways. Like, I am not a club dancer by any means,
Yeah.
but, but,
You like to bust a
I do
move?
agree. I don't bust a move. If I try to bust a move, I'll probably bust my back again. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you can't help it. And I do also know, I recognize that even, depending on what type of music um impacts, that's on, I find my body moving, and depending on what the beat is or the genre of music is, how, I my body almost instinctively adjust to
Mm-hmm.
that type of music that's
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. And I know that there's been studies as well with anxiety, depression. I'll mention one more here. Mozart's Piano Sonata. They played that for 2 hours a day for 3 weeks, and they had anxiety levels reduced just by playing the music. And so I'm not going to spend all day on that, but I thought that was really interesting that there really is some science behind how it affects your nervous system, how it affects your brain, and especially mentally. Do you find that if you're having a down day or you're just feeling a little bit low mentally, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Um, very, very upbeat, happy type music. like Bruno Mars, like a lot of his
Yeah.
are very, very upbeat and happy. Or yeah, or Pharrell, like he's got a lot of nice little
Yeah.
happy. If I need that mood boost, I go for
Mhm.
those very uplifting, like happy beat that really gets your body wanting to move as well.
Do you know, and this may be weird, but sometimes when I am having a rough day, I actually like to listen to sad songs.
Hmm.
And because there are certain songs that just speak to me about a time when it was worse. And I went through a really rough patch years ago. And sometimes when I'm having a really hard day, I like to put on some of those songs that are just really sad because it kind of brings me to a place of like, okay, well, I'm not there anymore, but
Hmm.
also recognizing how far I've come. And there is a couple songs. I know we're going to be spreading out some songs as we go through here, but my cousin actually helped write this song, and it's called "Stay and Wait," and it's by an artist out of Hawaii. His name's Ryan Hooley, and it is a song about how he dealt with depression. And it's such a beautiful song. And when I first heard it, I was like, okay, this is going on my list of songs that I need to have. And for some reason, sometimes just listening to those sad songs are more helpful for me than listening to really upbeat songs. So I'm sure you've heard Jelly Roll has a song that's popular, "Save Me." That's another
Hmm.
really heavy song. I don't know. Does that make any sense of like feeling like almost submerging yourself into sadness can somehow bring you in a better mood? Or I might just
Hmm.
be a weird one.
No, I can 100% see that. Like sometimes when you started talking about, about that, I realized that there are times that it's like you're sad and or your mood is just, you're in that little depressed mood and a good cry would help. So you throw
Yeah,
that song on that is going to make you bawl your eyes out just so that you can release
yeah,
everything that's building up in you. I
yeah,
do that. I like the sad songs to make me when I need to cry and
yeah,
release.
yeah. For me, it's not so much about crying, of just like realizing that where I'm at now is so far above where I was that it's like, okay, I can
Yeah.
handle this. This is
Right.
because I used to be there in that song, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
You've realized how much you've grown from that space
yeah,
where you used to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's one of your or a couple of your favorite? You talked about like boosting songs that kind of give you energy. What are some of your favorites there?
Um, I like, I'm going to show I'm going to show my age on a few of these. But I Will Survive by
Mhm.
Gloria Gaynor is one that's just always like, it's almost like an anthem for, when you're going through those going, I'll survive. Eye of the Tiger is also always by Survivor
Yeah,
is always a good one as well. Um,
classic.
uh, yeah, classic. I love, what was that Bruno Mars one that I had posted about the Friends or something?
Count on Me.
Count on, yeah, Bruno Mars, Count on Me. I really, really like
Yeah,
that
that's a
one.
great one.
I love
Yeah.
that one. That's a good one too. Do you have a song that it's almost like your encouraging anthem, so to speak? Something that you listen to every time you listen to it, you're like, it pumps you up and helps you realize that you can get through whatever it is you're struggling with right now.
Yeah. I actually really love. Have you ever seen The Greatest Showman?
Yes, yes.
I love This Is Me from The Greatest Showman.
I do love
And
that song.
that is one of my favorite movies. and I that is just an anthem. I had asked Instagram, what are some of your anthems, and AKA dot Invisible said that as well. This is me from The Greatest Showman, because it is just something about like the drums and the music and the Kayla, the singer, is just amazing. And that's one that can get my toes tapping a little bit.
Mhm.
I also really like, I don't know why, but this one, if I'm in the car, this one will get me kind of moving a little bit. But have you ever heard the song "Brand New" Ben Rector? You probably have
No. Oh, maybe.
if you hear it,
Mhm.
um, but that's a really kind of upbeat song to kind of boost mood, and I love a good anthem. Okay, so let me ask you this: so, do you ever use music to help with sleep or to calm you down if you're upset or stressed, something that will kind of bring anxiety down?
I do. I have a lot of problems sleeping. One thing that there's a few different ones depending on what my mood, what I'm needing. I can find on YouTube like a great 8 hour drumming meditation, which I
Mm-hmm.
put my little headband. I've got one of those soft, those soft headbands with the
Mm-hmm.
earbuds in them. I have those that I sleep in, and I'll turn on a good drumming meditation. And, there's just something about that. The beats for me are calming,
Mm-hmm.
or like a thunderstorm, like listening to a rainstorm or something like that. So, music doesn't necessarily always mean, lyrics
Words. Yeah.
or words. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be, a musical, um, nature is music as well. The sounds of
Mm-hmm.
nature can be music as well. So I find a lot of that when I'm feeling ungrounded, during the day. I may lay on the couch and put something like that on as well, but I do use that a lot for sleeping. How about you?
Well, to tag on to what you're saying, I know that drumming and rhythmical music can actually help with like traumatic brain injuries and some of that. I also saw there's a TV show that was on, oh gosh, maybe late 2010s, called This Is Us. It's a great show if you ever want a drama show. Wonderful show, but best pilot ever made. But anyway, but she had a lot of weight issues, and she was in like a camp, and they did rhythmical drumming to help with um, some of the trauma and everything that she had experienced. So I know that, especially with like the drumming and all of that, that can be really beneficial. I do know that there was songs that have been proven to help with sleep. These, of course, are more instrumental. It's more of
Classical.
classical music, but Chopin's Nocturne Opera 9, number 2, has been scientifically proven to reduce stress, help with sleep. So I also have a problem sleeping, but I don't use music. I have this little, I used to wear a headband like you do. But I got this little bar, and it goes in your pillow, and then you just put your head on the pillow and it amplifies it. And for some reason, I can't listen to music to try and sleep because I will get too caught up in singing along with the music that it will actually distract me from actually sleeping. So I will put on like TV shows or something where it's just like conversation, things like that. But because I love singing. I'm not the greatest singer, um but I love when I'm if I'm driving or when I'm home alone and the house is empty and I have things to do around the house, to just put on music and just sing. And I know that that also, there's benefits of singing, even if you're not a professional, of it just being therapeutic. So I love singing along with with the music. But
It's not just singing either that can help, but also musical instruments too.
yeah,
Yeah, like what I talk a lot about drumming because I absolutely love drumming. I love the beat. I love playing the drum. My issue is that Yogi hates the drum, so he
oh
usually
no.
tries to eat my he tries to eat my sticks as soon as I my mallets as soon as I try them, or as soon as I start playing. But I love drumming circles. I love the sound of like a steel tongue drum is a different sound. And for me, I just find a lot of I've been when I remember one of my favorite memories of when I went to Kripalu to train as a mindful outdoor guide is one day after as we were coming back from lunch, we were outside all gathered around the fire pit, and somebody had just brought out a bunch of different instruments, like
Hmm.
bells and the little finger cymbals and the like the shaker, like the rattle maracas and
Yeah.
drums and stuff. And we just jammed around the fire pit, and no, we just somebody started and we just followed along with the beat, and it was like this impromptu nature jam session it was just so amazing and uplifting to do.
So tell me about that as far as like what you felt, what happened to your mood, because that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the biggest things that was felt, and we were growing together, like we trained for 10 days and spent a lot of time together, but it even helped solidify that sense of community, that sense of family almost, because you're connecting with these other people and you're tuning into their energy in a different way of like as you're following their beat. So having that feeling of, creating that feeling just helps the mood so much. You feel it in your heart.
Hmm.
Your heart just feels full. The beats just help raise your energy, because we had really long, excruciating days outside, outside the whole time. Unless, there was one time I think storms were moving in, so we had to make a dash inside. But if it was rain, cold, sleet, we were out there. So, just introducing that and it just raised the energy
Hmm. That's
of.
cool. Hey, Spoonful of Strength listeners. I know we've talked about nutrition on the podcast. Well, we can't forget about our furry friends.
That's right, Rachel. Our pets deserve the same love and care when it comes to what they eat. That's why we're excited to tell you about Space Dog treats sold by my business, Magical Mutts Creations.
These treats are made with all natural ingredients crafted right here in the USA and free from unnecessary additives. My dogs love the Salmon Galaxy Bites. They do a happy dance every time they hear the bag crinkle.
Supporting Magical Mutts means supporting a chronic illness-owned business that truly cares. Treat your pup to healthy, nutritious snacks they'll love.
Visit magicalmuttscreations.com today and discover the magic.
Because our furry friends also deserve healthy treats. It's funny that you talk about how you sing and the
Mm-hmm.
music comes on. It's just natural. Sometimes you just can't help yourself. But when I was going through radiation, they would put me in the in the little radiation on the table, strap me down, get me ready, and they're like, okay, no. And it was like, I think it was 20, maybe 30 minutes at the most. And they're like, lay really, really still, because of course you're getting, you've got lasers being pointed very target, in a very target spot, so you're not supposed to move. But then they would have music piped in, but it wasn't like relaxing classical music. Like they would be playing the 80s channel, the stuff
Oh
that I would be
no.
dancing through my house when I'm you're doing housework for. And so, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if again, I'm probably aging myself, but the movie In and Out, when Kevin Kline it was like, don't dance to the music. And then he
Mm-hmm.
starts dancing. And that's how I felt, because they're like, stay really still. And I'm like, how am I going to
Oh
stay
my
still
gosh.
when you've got like Eye of the Tiger playing or, or
Ugh.
any Journey song or anything like that? It was pretty funny.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, you bring up a good point as far as, I've had my share of MRIs, and I had to do an MRI a couple months ago where normally they put, earbuds or headphones on you and you could stream music and it's a really good distraction. And I had to do like a 2 hour MRI with nothing. Like
Oh my
they didn't
gosh.
have music, they didn't have any of that. And you realize just how much like that is something that you can concentrate on. And I used to even sit there and, she would say, you got 10 minutes left. And I was like, okay, 3 songs, that's 3 songs I
Right.
got to get through. And it's a good way of distracting. And when you don't have that peace, then it is torturous. But it is interesting because yeah, you find those songs that you can't help but your feet kind of tapping and but you've got to stay extremely still. That's like one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Um, but they let you pick whatever kind of music you want. So I guess I should have probably said classical or something like that. But you can't sing along to a classical
No, you
song.
can't. You can't. No. And without music, when that's the hard part. When I go in for my PET scans, and my scan is only, I think, 20 or 30 minutes, so it's not crazy, but you're supposed to hold still. There's no,
Yeah.
it's quiet. I've had no caffeine because I've had to go with no caffeine for 24 hours. And so I'm, already tired. And I'm
Hmm.
so afraid of like falling asleep, like starting to doze off and do
Oh yeah.
that jerk, that body jerk when you, and so,
Yeah.
that's difficult too. So having music again helps you.
Yeah.
Um, Now I know you don't travel as much, but on long trips, do you find that music helps you stay focused, or do you find it other ways to help?
Yeah, I don't travel much and I don't travel alone much. My husband and I, as you know, we have different taste in music. He will listen to the classical and and I like more, contemporary things and songs that are more current. And but when I'm driving by myself, I I like listening to my playlist. And it's so funny because I have so many different playlists. Like I have a playlist just for this is just like current music I like. And then I have like a 90s and 2000 era type, those songs of, when I was in high school um and kind of that era. I even listened to a little bit of old school country. So I have like different albums and different playlists, and it's really just all about kind of what I'm in the mood for that day as far as what I pick. I also, when I'm in the shower, I'll pick a playlist and turn it on and just have music, and I'll do a little singing in the shower, but I have to be careful because I don't want it getting out to the living room where the dogs will start howling and crying at the moon. But let me tell you a couple other Instagram songs that we got here. M's Stroke of Lightning, that's Emily. She was on our episode a couple weeks ago. Says she loves Beautiful Things by Benson Boone. That's a beautiful song if you've not heard that one.
Hmm.
I love that song. And Kate from Aligned Kate said, Bring It All Back by S Club lifts my mood and inspires me to keep going. It's her life anthem. I think that there's definitely different types of music for different things. We're going to have a playlist that we're going to share some of these songs from Tina and I and some of your recommendations on Spotify. So if you look in the description of the podcast, you'll see a link that will get you to our playlist. And in that playlist, we've got some sad songs, we've got some inspiring songs, some songs to boost mood, some spiritual songs. We didn't have a chance to talk about, spiritual songs, just empowering songs, and then some songs for sleeping. So it'll have a quite a range of songs.
We would absolutely love to hear about your favorite songs. So drop them down there in the comment section and let us know what's on your playlist.
Yes. Awesome. And we're going to ask Karis about music when we bring her in here shortly. She is a harp player. So I would be very interested to know her thought that as well. So we're going to talk to her a little bit. You ready to bring her in?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's welcome her in.
Well, welcome, Karis, to the Spoonful of Strength podcast. We're really excited to have you here. And we're really excited to hear about your story with limb girdle muscular dystrophy 2I, and interested in hearing a little bit more about that. But first, we want to ask if you will share a little bit about yourself with our listeners, where you're from, things you like to do, and anything you might want to share.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for having me on. I'm very excited to chat with you guys today. But yeah, I'm Cerys Davidge. I'm 23 years old and I live in Wales in the UK. Was born and bred in Cardiff, the capital city of Wales, and I'm still here to this day. And I work as a journalist for BBC Wales. So that's my full-time job, but another thing that is very that consumes a lot of my life is my podcast, Unbalanced with Cerys Davidge. I'm an advocate for the disability community, but mainly the limb girdle muscular dystrophy community, as I'm sure we'll get into.
So you're going to share with us about your journey with your limb girdle muscular dystrophy. How old were you when you received that diagnosis?
So I was 7 years old, receiving the diagnosis. I was pre-symptomatic, and the way my parents found out about my diagnosis was kind of on accident. I was going through a diagnosis for celiac disease, which I've had since birth, and spent 7 long years trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I was very anemic, very thin arms and legs. I wasn't eating properly and things. I wasn't growing at all. So finally got that diagnosis at the age of 7, but they also noticed in my blood test during that time that my CK levels were really high, and that is usually something that only happens if you are have experienced trauma, or you've got something really, really wrong with your muscles, and or your liver's failing or something. So the doctors started freaking out a bit, and then they realized that it could be something to do. Well, they realized then from those tests that it was something to do with my muscles. So they went down that route then, and with some genetic testing, I was diagnosed with limb girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I. There's lots of different subtypes. And I guess I was lucky receiving the diagnosis at that age because I wasn't receiving any symptoms. Um, my parents hadn't actually told me as soon as I got the diagnosis because it wasn't affecting me. They didn't want me to start freaking out. They didn't want me to look out for any signs or symptoms. So they were kind of lucky that they knew what was going to happen before it was too late.
Mhm. So is this something that, because it's genetic, is this something that your parents are carriers of?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So my both my parents are carriers, but neither of them are affected.
Okay. And what were the first symptoms when you did have symptoms? What were those?
So around 12 years old, I noticed that I was always the slowest person in class. When we had sports days, I could never keep up with my peers, my friends. And I just kind of hated sports because I knew I wasn't very good at it. And I just thought, well, that's it, I'm just not very good at sports. And it was around that age that I found out about the condition. My parents told me about LGMD because I was just starting to get symptoms. It was mostly that I couldn't walk for extremely long. I was still quite active. I did swimming, I did tap dancing as a child. My family and I went on lots of bike rides together, so I was still fairly active, but I did notice over time from, the age of 12 onwards that I was struggling to keep up or struggling to do as much as I used to be able to do, like I maybe wouldn't be able to cycle as far as I used to because obviously it's a condition that worsens, it's a muscle wasting condition. So I had to adapt pretty quickly to losing things that I used to be able to do.
I can only imagine as a preteen that had to be a hard journey to go through. Um, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have two younger sisters, and after my diagnosis, my parents were given the opportunity to go into testing with my two younger sisters as well, which they did because at that point I was receiving a lot of care. Even though I wasn't showing many symptoms, I was, receiving physio, just a lot of general monitoring of my condition. So my parents wanted my sisters to have the same kind of care and the same um kind of monitoring as well, just so we all had like the equal opportunity. So both my sisters are LGMD 2I girlies as well, just like me. So yeah, the three of us are in it together, but we have very different symptoms from each other, which is very interesting.
Mm.
Hmm.
So, can you tell our listeners what exactly LGMD is?
Of course. So LGMD, limb girdle muscular dystrophy, is a muscle wasting condition, and it affects the limb girdles, which are kind of like the muscle joints, I always try and say. So it's kind of like the shoulders, the hips, um, the muscles that connect the limbs, limb girdle. And it's essentially a condition where the muscles break down over time, and as you get older, the muscles will weaken and weaken.
Is there a typical timeline or age that where those that have tested genetically for that start exhibiting symptoms if they are going to exhibit them?
You mean from the test to receiving symptoms?
Or just more like the age range, like at 12, that's kind of like that prepubescent age, and I didn't know if that is kind of like a common time factor in
Yeah.
development.
So with LGMD, there are two different types. There's homozygous and there's heterozygous. And I really hope I'm saying the right one now, but heterozygous is the one with an early onset. So you start receiving symptoms right from the get-go, right from a very young age. So I have the homozygous subtype, which means that I have quite later, it's like a later onset. So I was very fortunate to have quite a normal childhood without any symptoms. So it was from about 12, but again, that's just me. It's affects everyone so differently, and because it's such a rare condition, it's really hard to kind of get a timeline, and it affects everyone really differently. Like both my sisters went a lot longer without getting any symptoms, and I know other people with LGMD that have had symptoms before 12, and still have the same onset as me. I know I've met some people with LGMD that are my age that aren't getting a lot of symptoms and are doing better off than I am or worse off than I am. So it is very different. And I guess it's just a case of just focusing on your own body and what you can and can't do, and just trying not to compare yourself to other people, because it can be quite off-putting, if you see someone at the age of 40 in a wheelchair, unable to walk, and you think, oh gosh, well, that's going to be me. But actually, that might
Mhm.
not be the case, I might be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 30, I might be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 50, who knows? Um, but yeah, I am lucky to have the late onset, because the early onset obviously it's a much more aggressive form, and the symptoms progress a lot sooner in life.
With people experiencing completely different symptoms and completely different progression, I have MS and it's very similar to that, where everybody's story is a little bit different. Sometimes I feel like I wish there was a timeline of like, this is when you start progressing, and just to kind of know what's going to happen versus kind of being everybody's story is a little bit different. How do you feel about that? I mean, would you rather have something that kind of the progression was kind of normally progressed versus something that, between you and your sibling, could have completely different progressions.
That's a very interesting question. And I think not knowing what my future holds can be really scary. And I don't know when these different losses will happen, when I'll lose the ability to do something, when I'm doing a hobby, will this be the last time I'll be able to do it? Like it is difficult in that way. And there is a part of me that wishes, I could see into the future or, have some kind of a timeline so that I can, expect things. But in reality, not knowing has given me the opportunity to just make the most of every day, make the most of exactly where I am now. And it's not something I've always been able to appreciate, from a very young age. You don't really grasp the whole concept. When I was growing up and when I was still navigating this condition and getting to terms with the future, I didn't really appreciate that fully. And I don't think I was going through experiences at a young age thinking, okay, well, this is the last time I'm going to do it. I have to really take it in. I was just a kid, I was just going through the motions and dreaming about when I was going to be older because that's what kids do, right? But
Mhm.
now I try and make the most of where I am now. And um, it is quite upsetting sometimes to see, my sisters can do things that I couldn't at their age, but it's, I'm happy for them that they can, and I just hope that they're like me, making the most of what they can still do. And again, I try not to compare with other people, I try to just focus on what I can do now. So I think not knowing about the future has given me that kind of sense of gratitude for life that maybe I wouldn't have. But again, if I did know what was going on in the future and what, at what age I would hit these kind of milestones, maybe I would still, I'd kind of be dreading it, counting down the days. Um,
Hmm.
so I think I'm doing okay now, but it
Yeah.
can be a
Mhm.
scary concept, and it is okay to grieve what you've lost, definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Unknown is scary, can be
Yeah.
scary. So, um,
Yeah.
I think you said that
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do struggle with that, like thinking that there's a timeline. Yeah. A friend of
Mm.
mine, used to always tell me that when I was going through my cancer journey, we're not born with an expiration date on our bottom of our foot, or in our case with those with chronic illnesses, there is no specific timeline of saying, okay, by the time I'm 40, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Rachel from Spoonful of Strength. My Etsy shop is a chronic illness owned business where I design t shirts, hoodies, mugs, magnets, and more, all with a focus on chronic illness empowerment. Whether you're looking for something cozy, funny, or inspiring, I've got you covered. I also take custom orders because your story deserves to shine. Visit spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com. That's spoonful with two L's, and enjoy 25% off your order with the code podcast at checkout. Let's wear our strength with pride, one design at a time.
What do you feel are your biggest struggles on a day-to-day basis?
I'd have to say, obviously my condition has progressed a lot more since I was in school and I was a bit more mobile. I really struggle to get out from seats now, and that is something obviously you do many times a day. I usually have to lean onto a table or something else, or arms if the chair has arms, because my hips just are quite weak now. I do struggle with that. There's also the unpredictability of the condition because you can have good days and bad days, as I'm sure, we all do. But there are some days where I could walk quite well, and there are some days where I could barely get out of bed. So I'm not enjoying the unpredictability and not knowing whether or not I'll be able to go ahead with plans that day or whether I'll have to cancel and stay in bed, So there's always that kind of line of, I don't know, kind of not fully committing mentally to something because you don't want to disappoint yourself if you can't end up doing that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess, yeah, there's that mental toll on a day-to-day basis, but it is mostly the just the little things like putting my shoes on, getting up from chairs, they can be a struggle.
Hmm. And we we talk about a lot on the podcast about the mental side of chronic illness. Um, how have you navigated dealing with this illness mentally?
One thing I have yet to discover is therapy, and I've been recommended that. So that's TBC. I'll let you know how that
Mhm.
goes. But I guess I didn't really think therapy would be an option because I don't have a label for, I don't have a mental health issue, but actually physical conditions do affect you mentally. And it doesn't really hit me until I've had a particularly bad day. For example, my condition means that sometimes my knees could give way and I could just fall over at any time, at any place. And I've had days where I've fallen over and I've just felt completely defeated by this condition, or times where I really miss running. I can't run anymore, and I used to go for runs. And if it's a particularly nice day outside, I'm thinking, oh, I'd do anything to go for a run. I just can't anymore. So there are some days where I can feel that the condition is kind of taking over and I feel a bit defeated by it. But I think that's important as well because if you try to shove it to the back of your mind all the time, it just won't be good for you long term and it'll all end up crashing down at one point. So it is important to let it out sometimes and to grieve. But I think I try to focus on the positives and what I can still do, um, just to avoid going crazy.
Yeah.
But there's also that thing, um, like Tina said, you don't know at this age this will happen. You just don't know. And sometimes I think, this condition will get worse and worse, obviously, but I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there are just so many different things that could happen. Um, which I'm not saying that to freak people out. I'm just saying it as a way to, this anything can happen and life is unpredictable outside of the disability or condition or chronic illness. And, you know,
Mhm.
that might not be the thing that ends up defeating you after all. So I'd say just, I try to make the most of life, regardless of it. But I think I still will try therapy.
Are there certain activities that you find that help you the most, either physically or mentally or emotionally?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna separate them into physical and mental. So physical,
Absolutely. Yep. Mhm.
my physio has recommended swimming, and I'm sure any person with some kind of physical disability has been recommended swimming at one point in their life. Um, and I do find that swimming does help. Obviously, again, can't swim half as much as I used to be able to. I used to swim all the time with my mum and my sisters. But now I've got my own little routine. I don't put any pressure on myself and I just do as much as I can do that day. But again, I don't push myself because with this condition, if you push yourself too hard physically,
Mhm.
you're going to end up damaging your muscles. Because it's not possible with this condition to build muscle. I can't get huge biceps or abs or anything. It would just, ruin my body if I tried. So
Mhm.
there's that case of trying to save energy as well. I mean, spoon. You
Mhm.
guys know a lot about that. So it's
Yep.
also about saving spoons, saving energy. And so when I do go swimming, I don't overdo it because I know that after swimming, I need to get out of the pool, which will take some spoons, have a shower, get dressed, drive home, So I need to be very careful with my energy. So, yeah, that's very important. But I do enjoy swimming. I gym as well. And obviously, my gym routine changes a lot. And I do a lot of physio recommended things. So those are the things that I think, and just try and stay as active as I can without overdoing it. I think if I sit down all day, that's not going to be good for me because I'm not exercising my muscles. So there is that balance, there's that fine line between resting, but also staying active so that your muscles aren't weakening faster. So there's just kind of trying to stay on the same line, try to maintain what I have as much as I can. That's the goal. And then mentally, I read a lot. I'm trying to read more than I am, but I'm really enjoying reading. It's a way for me to force myself to stop because I'm quite a busy person. I'm quite an active person. I could easily tire myself out and, run around well, not literally run, but go around the place, tidying or doing my laundry, washing up. And then before you know it, I've crashed and I can't do anything else. So reading is good because I have to stop. I have to use my hands to hold the book, and it quiets your mind down because you're focusing on something else. So reading I enjoy, and coloring I'm trying to get into because who doesn't like coloring, It's like bringing back your childhood, and it's just very soothing and soothes your mind. But I'd say the thing that keeps me going the most is music. I am a
Mhm.
musician and I just love listening to music all the time, anywhere.
I was just going to ask you about that
Yeah.
because Tina and I were talking in the first part of the episode about music with chronic illness. And so I want to talk about your podcast, but I do want to ask, you play the harp, is that right?
I do. How did you find that out?
Yes. I was studying your Instagram page and
Oh,
I think your link tree had a page. And so, we talked about how important music is with chronic illness and using it to help with sleep or to boost mood and different things like that. So, how has music impacted your life with a chronic illness?
wow. It's an interesting relationship. So growing up, I have loved music. Both my parents are musicians. My dad taught me piano from a very young age, and then I learned to play the harp. And piano and harp took over my life pretty much all through school. I did all the grades. I had constant lessons and I had to practice every day. So it was a big part of my life. And then as my condition progressed, I noticed that I could play for a lot less, in one go. I couldn't play for as long as I used to. So there was that kind of battle in the end. I would get fed up with it pretty quickly. Now I don't play it as much, but when I do and when I play at weddings or parties, I love revisiting it. Um, but after some practices and doing the gigs, I realize it's not a sustainable future for me. So it's a nice hobby, but again, it's something I have to, get to terms with that I can't do that, forever. Um, and then, so that's playing music, and I still teach as well. I teach piano and harp lessons to children. So I still get to use that. And obviously, my voice isn't going to go away with this condition. My voice will always be there. So even if I lose the ability to play, I can still teach it to other children, which I think is just lovely. But listening to music, I do all the time. And music just is everything to me. It makes me feel better if I'm down. It just puts me in such a better mood. I could be in the worst of moods and listening to music will just pick me right back up. There's nothing like it.
We're actually putting together a playlist for this episode. So, what would be a couple songs that would be on your playlist? We'll add
Oh
it
my
to the episode's playlist on your
goodness.
behalf.
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? What songs are you guys adding so I can like kind of fit the vibe?
We have pretty much the
It
whole
is.
spectrum. We have like things that make you want to get up and go, things that are inspiring, spiritual. We have some instrumental, some sleep.
Oh,
I even have when I mentioned earlier in the episode that when I'm feeling down, I like to listen to sad songs. So we even have, some sad songs on there, and there's a wide variety of
okay.
songs.
Um, that's something I need to work on. My sister loves listening to sad songs when she's sad because she can,
Yeah.
really let it all out. For me, if I'm sad, I need to listen to happy songs. I need to get out of that mood. I don't like wallowing in the sadness. I just love music that makes me dance. there are a lot of songs by Mac Miller, who's a rapper that I love. You know, a lot of his songs are very kind of dancey. He's very clever with words. Ariana Grande is an artist that I've loved since I was a young girl, and One Direction. Can't go wrong with any kind of One Direction.
Mhm.
So I guess I listen to a lot of Ariana Grande and One Direction for nostalgic purposes. You know, it makes me just feel better because I'm very familiar with those songs. And Harry Styles as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd recommend a lot of their songs as well. I can't pick
Yeah,
one.
for sure.
Is there one specific song that you feel almost kind of embodies your journey?
You know what? I immediately thought of my favorite song by Harry Styles, which is called Sign of the Times.
Yes.
And the main line in that song is don't stop your crying. It's a sign of the times. And I think that kind of sums up the condition because it's a very emotional song, but it's also very big and it's very loud and it's very um it really picks you up. Like you really feel like just taken with the music. But yeah, I feel like those lyrics resonate with my condition as well. So there you
A
go.
great song. Yeah, love
Yeah,
that song.
you've got good
Um,
taste.
yes. Well, we definitely want to talk about your podcast. So walk me through how you started the podcast, why you started the podcast, and a little bit about it.
So growing up, when I was in school, I didn't know anyone else that was my age with a disability. I always thought of disabilities as, old people that just couldn't walk anymore and had to be in a wheelchair. I didn't really connect that with, the younger generation, my kind of generation. I wasn't exposed to a lot of it when I was in school, and I started to get into listening to podcasts. I like to listen to a lot of other young women talk about lots of different topics that, we as young adults go through and young women. And I realized that there weren't a lot of podcasts that, or any that I listened to that talked about disabilities. And especially during COVID, when I was shielding and I couldn't really go out, and when lockdown started to ease a little bit and people were starting to go out, I couldn't do that, and I listened to a lot of podcasts in that time. And yeah, I just wanted someone to be able to relate to on that deeper level and to understand exactly what it was like to go through something, but also with a disability. And yeah, I wanted to start a podcast myself because I've got some experience in radio. I've always enjoyed the concept of interviewing people, and my family or anyone who knows me could say I could talk for whales. That's what they say. I could just talk and
Mhm.
talk forever. But I needed a hook because no one cares what I have to say if I just ramble on about anything. Like I needed a thing. I needed a subject. And I realized that they would go hand in hand, having experience in presenting and interviewing, but also wanting to raise awareness and fill that gap in the podcast market for young people with disabilities. So I guess I just wanted to showcase what life was really like as a young adult with a disability, not only to educate people who might not have any idea and who maybe want to get to know what it's like a bit better, but also to hopefully find a community, and that I did. Yeah, and I guess I came up with the name Unbalanced because everyone's imbalanced, life is imbalanced. People can be mentally imbalanced. And it's also a bit of a play, a bit of a joke because I'm unbalanced because of my condition. I fall over a lot. And yeah, I just thought it was funny. And it's catchy, I
Great
think.
name. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, where can we find your podcasts?
You can find my podcast on any podcast platform, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I've also recently started YouTube because I've started doing video episodes. So yeah, check them out.
How frequently do you air?
So I don't do seasons. It's just a recurring thing, and it's been going on for over a year and a half now. And the episodes are out every other Sunday at the moment, but I've been very lucky to do a lot of interviews recently. So I'm hoping to do a little bit more than every other week. So it tends to be a mix of solo episodes with just me talking about lots of different topics, and then interviews with lots of different people from all around the world, thanks to social media and Zoom.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's a variety of episodes, and what's nice about it is that you don't need to listen to them in order. You don't need to listen to all of them if you don't want to. You can just pick out the ones that interest you. There's hopefully something there for everyone.
Mm, definitely. I listened to one the other day that was really good. I picked out a couple of them and I've listened to a couple of them, and you do a really good job. I don't know if I could pull off doing a podcast by myself. So I don't know that I'm
Thank
interesting
you.
enough to be able to do that. So
It's a
I
lot of
applaud you
work,
because it
but
is yeah, you do a really good job. So
thank
we'll
you.
definitely tag the podcast in the description. So if y'all want to listen to the podcast, we'll have a link for you. And where can we find you online to follow your story?
So I've got an Instagram called at Unbalanced Podcast. You can follow that and send me any questions that you want me to answer, or any topics that you might want to hear on the podcast. I've also got my main Instagram at Cerys David if you want to keep in touch with my personal life. I've also got TikTok that I'm trying to get into a bit more at Cerys David as well. And then YouTube is Cerys David, but if you just type in my podcast name, that'll come up as well.
Okay, great. Um, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
It's been a
Thank you guys for
pleasure. I
having
mean, it's just
me.
been great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's been
So
so nice to chat with you ladies, and I want to know more about you. So you guys are going to have to come onto my podcast.
absolutely.
Oh, we would love
Yes.
that. Absolutely
Yeah.
would love that.
It's been so nice to meet you,
Oh,
and
nice to
It's
yeah,
meet
we'll
nice
you.
definitely
meeting
stay
you
in
too.
touch.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you,
Take care.
Karis.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
She was lovely. I just want to say lovely because it
Lovely.
sounds so British, but
I
I love
do.
her accent.
I do too, but I always laugh because every time we talk about when we do have a spoonie from elsewhere, yeah, we always talk about how much we love their accents, and I always wonder
Yeah.
if they're like get off the phone going, "Wow, they have a lovely accent," about the same thing with us.
I don't, yeah, I don't know if my Indiana, Midwestern Indiana accent is that great, but we've not been able to talk with anybody with muscular dystrophy. And I think it's so interesting how she was diagnosed so young and before she was even symptomatic. And I
Yeah,
think about, her parents keeping that from her. I think that was very interesting because I think as a young girl of 7 years old, that would have been a heavy load to carry. So
yeah,
I'm glad
yeah.
they kind of held that tight for a little bit.
Well, and especially when and I don't know enough about the testing to know did they at 7 know that she was eventually going to become symptomatic, or could she have potentially just been a carrier, in which case,
Yeah. Yeah.
that could have also taken a lot of joy out of those early childhood years of being worried about, okay, when, or every little even normal childhood thing that goes
Right.
on, like the growing pains, so to speak,
Yeah.
overthinking that it's something more than that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I really enjoyed about her is she's got just a really positive attitude. Because it is hard being in a situation where you're living with an illness that there is no map and there is such difference in one person to the next and a progression that can be at different speeds. And so I understand like that, not knowing what am I going to look like a year from now? What am I going to look like in 5 years? And I love her attitude of just like, you know what? I don't want to know. I'm going to live for every moment. And that was something that I know is very difficult to do. And I think it takes a really
Right.
strong woman to have that sort of
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah. Great attitude. Great, great role model, really, for the younger people that are growing up with a chronic illness, of just being this, sharing the importance of just being positive and living every day in the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you all to our wonderful listeners for tuning in again for another episode of Spoonful of Strength. Be sure to click the link in our description that will take you to our Spotify playlist. So have a listen to some of our favorite songs that we find comfort and motivation as we go through our chronic illness journeys. And be sure to join us next Tuesday, where Rachel and I, we're going to be talking about self-esteem. And then after that, our Spoonie of the Week is Nicole, and she'll be joining us and talking about her journey with gastroparesis. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Spoonful of Strength. We hope that you found a little inspiration and maybe even a new perspective to carry with you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us for more, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you're feeling generous, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your support helps us reach more Spoonies just like you.
Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and keep finding strength in your story. Bye for now.
And see you next time on Spoonful of Strength.